What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different kind of video rather than just showing a full workout. What I want to discuss today is the main principles to look for when selecting an exercise for your programming in terms of how this benefits me and how I'm going to be able to get the most stimulus from it. It's a really confusing topic for some, but it's able to be broken down. I have into three main categories, and I have them listed here. Number one is going to be bracing, number two, profile, and number three, accuracy. And the first thing you guys are going to think is, what exactly do they mean, and how does this pertain to my own exercise selection and my own training? So what I will do is I'll take each one of these in depth, explain exactly what we're looking for and how to enhance this. And also I look to be able to tie the three of these together. So number one, we're going to be talking about bracing. What we want to do when bracing for an exercise is create the most stable environment possible for the single muscle that is going to be doing the work of the exercise. So what that means is, for example, if I'm training biceps, what I'm looking for is to be able to stabilize my humerus, to put that on a pad, which is a common way that people do train their biceps in terms of preacher curls. Preacher curls is a great exercise that is braced. So comparing that to a free motion dumbbell curl, where there's no stabilization and you literally have to provide that yourself by just going through this motion. Change that to a preacher curl once you're on the bench and you're able to brace your humerus, and then with the counteracting force of the dumbbell coming up, which you're trying to train, and then the planting of your humerus on the pad, those counteracting forces are able to provide a stable environment. That's how we do it. We look for exercises that you have a bench to brace either your whole body or parts of your body on that counteract what we're trying to do with a particular exercise. In turn, this leads to a much greater force output. And the best way for me to think about force output in a brace versus a non-brace environment, I like to think of exercises within each muscle group that are braced versus not braced. In particular, you could compare a squat for quads or overall lower body development versus a hack squat. So when you're squatting, it's you and the floor. You have 2 feet on the floor with a bar on your back, and that's all you have. So that is going to create a very unstable environment where the main focus isn't necessarily going to be on contracting your muscles against the resistance to go straight up and down in a very stable manner versus a hack squat. If one was to hack squat on a machine, you would be able to be braced against a pad on your back, pads on your shoulders. So with your feet on the platform and going down the angle of the machine, pretty much all you have to think about at that point is contracting your quads to drive explosively up and finish the rep. And not to say that one is better than the other, like many cases within training, the answer is it depends. I'm not saying don't ever do squats again. I'm not saying hack squats are the answer, but what it simply means is if you're looking for an exercise that's braced, clearly a hack squat, a leg press, any machine that you're able to usually drive your lower back or even your entire back or upper body into is going to be a much more stable environment for force output. Another thing I see people do a lot is just moving quickly, doing a shoulder press. And if a military bench with an upright back is not available, sometimes people will just sit on a regular adjustable bench flat with nothing behind their back. And the first thing they will notice is the weight that they could handle on that military press substantially drops. Not because their shoulders instantly became weaker or anything like that. It's because they're in a less stable environment, and the weakest link would be their core that has to stabilize itself. So that's what we're looking for in bracing when selecting exercises. So of course, in more detail and more future videos, what I will do is I will break down certain exercises within each muscle group that are braced, that have great profile, great accuracy, and how we could select those and add those into programming. So the second one I'll get into is profile. And all profile is where we're looking to overload a movement. And what I mean by that is a muscle contracts and it is going to be at its weakest in the shortened and lengthened extreme ranges of that muscle. So for example, I'll talk about pecs in a bench press or any other chest exercise. So your pecs function is to adduct your humerus to the sternum. So if you analyze the shortened and lengthened ranges, the lengthened range would be where that pec insertion is most stretched. So at the bottom of a bench press or a cable fly, when the distance between the origin point and the insertion point are the longest, hence the lengthened range. So your muscle's ability to generate force in that range is going to be weak, as well as being weak in the short. So back to the pec example, if we are doing a cable fly, for example, the shortened range is when the insertion and origin are closest to each other. So it would be a peak contraction at the top. Imagine me having a cable running this way. That would be the shortened range. Again, your body is not able to produce as much force in that range as well. The body is great at producing force in the mid-ranges, away from the lengthened extreme, away from the shortened extreme. So what we do when we train for hypertrophy is we want to get strong in those extreme ranges. So what we have to do is look at the profile of an exercise in terms of what muscle we're trying to train. And that's where a lot of the physics portion of training comes into. We can look at what kind of resistance we're trying to use and what resistance profile it provides for us. Any kind of dumbbell, barbell, free weight motion, the only influence of force we're going to have is gravity. So gravity will bear straight down. So we have to keep that in mind when we're selecting an exercise as to where the hardest part of the motion is going to be. So I'll stick with the pecs example. And when we talk about a dumbbell bench press or a barbell bench press, what happens with that is gravity will take over. And when your pec is in the lengthened position, this will be the hardest point of the motion. So then once you contract all the way up to the top and you get near locking your joints, gravity will be bearing straight down. And here, if you're in this locked position, you no longer have tension. So that's okay. And you have to realize that when putting it into your program. So a bench press with barbells or dumbbells, or the majority of free weight movements will be great to overload in the lengthened position. On the other hand, we can talk about cables. Cables are more intricate in terms of where we can overload the resistance. Cables have the ability to do both. You can overload the shortened, you can overload the lengthened based on what you are running the cable against in terms of your moment arm. What your moment arm is the joints and structures that are moving the weight and its distance from the midline of the body. So when using a cable, tension always will be greatest at 90 degrees. So if I'm doing a cable fly and I'm here and I have the cable bearing directly perpendicular to me, that's where my tension will be the greatest. Knowing that, then we are able to overload the shortened by running the cable 90 degrees this way, or we could alter our body position and be able to overload a lengthened position and have the cable run 90 degrees when we are in that lengthened position. So that's where cables provide a really good opportunity to where you can train shortened, train lengthened if you haven't had enough of either one within your workout for the day. And that is overall our main goal. We want to get strong in those extremes, unlock the growth potential that is there. So lastly, I'm going to be talking about accuracy. And accuracy It's very interconnected with profile. Accuracy simply means we must line up directly the tension with the muscle we are trying to train. And this is where the anatomy of your muscle will be able to come in handy for you. Knowing your insertion point and knowing your origin point and knowing the fact that we want to get those points as short as possible to obtain a max contraction. That's what accuracy does. So I'll stick with the pec example again for accuracy. This can be used when selecting a bench angle for your pressing motion. So common knowledge would be to say that an incline press would work your upper chest. That is correct, but it's not necessarily simply the angle of the bench that's creating that. It's going to be the angle of the sternum and then where that moment arm is traveling. So the accuracy portion comes in. So if I'm on an incline bench, naturally my sternum, I'm going to have my scapula retracted, and then I'm going to be pressing up. So my humerus is going to be higher. Imagine I have a dumbbell in my hand, and I bring it down. So I'm here, and you'll see that the tension will line up directly with the fibers that are going to be working this motion. So my hand is much more, my elbow, my humerus, all is up close to my upper chest near my clavicular fibers. So that is really why those fibers get involved more so. There are many more examples of this within each muscle group, but I'm just trying to give a basic, understandable example of how we can manipulate these things to efficiently select our exercises in our workouts. So there is a strong link, like I said, between accuracy and profile, and that comes back to knowing the anatomy of your body and knowing how we need to shorten that insertion and origin point, and also going back to profile and knowing the influences of the tension that you're training with. Free weights, cables, machines, anything like that. So combining the factors of accuracy and profile, you're able to select exercises that work well for both. And what I mean by that, let me try to bring it all together with the dumbbell press example. So we'll select, per se, a flat dumbbell press. And when selecting this exercise, we want to have a goal in mind. We want to know, number one, what muscle, what area of a muscle we are trying to train. But also, number two, we want to know what area of the strength curve we are trying to train. So in this particular example, like I said, we have the gravity factor coming in. So we are going to be overloading the length and range, and we are also going to be overloading the mid-pec. On a flat bench, sternum remains flat, elbow will travel toward the mid-pec. That's where the accuracy portion comes in. So selecting a flat dumbbell press would be a smart exercise to select if you want to overload the lengthened position of middle pec fibers. And that's really what I keep in mind anytime I select my exercises and group my exercises together, more importantly, in a workout. So what I aim to do when training a muscle group is to not only train different muscles involved, whether if I'm hitting a back day, try to select exercises for lats, ones that have more tension on lower lats with different kinds of tension, but also hit my traps and my teres. And what I also want to do is within those muscle groups, be able to select exercises that will overload each of those muscles previously named in the shortened and lengthened range. And of course, some exercises can possibly kill two birds with one stone and provide a great resistance profile. But also, there are some exercises that people might refer to as common muscle building exercises that are supposed to work and be mass builders per se, that might not have a great profile, or they might not line up great with the muscle that it is intended to work. So these are all things that you want to keep in mind when selecting your exercises. So if you could take away one thing from this, it's to really think through your exercises before you put them in a workout. And by doing that, when you think about an exercise, consider these three factors. Again, bracing, profile, and accuracy. The more you can match an exercise with these three, arguably the more beneficial it's going to be in your workout, and in turn, you can get more done with less variety, less volume, less stimulus to recover from, and at that point, that will unlock a whole new level of growth for you. So like I said, I'll definitely get back into these three topics within individual muscle group videos in the future. I'd like to get that and also lay out some really smart exercises to select with these three factors considered, but what I wanted to do was just lay out how to structure your workout, something you can learn today and be able to improve your workouts and improve your workout efficiency, more importantly. So guys, thank you for watching this, and I hope you continue to watch. Leave a thumbs up if you like it. Tell me in person, tell me if you don't like it. And also, I'm entertaining any ideas for future videos, and I will definitely consider more of this with individual muscle group specific training, like I said. I hope you guys enjoyed this.